So if you're white, I want to bring your attention to this one thing that you or some other white person you know may be doing with the best of intentions, but it's ultimately proving the point that you're arguing against. And that is bringing up the subject of reverse racism, which is kind of an oxymoron. It's like a man using the term reverse sexism, right? Because when we talk about someone who's being sexist in a male-dominated world, we're typically referring to men. And the same is true for a white person in America who claims that they experienced reverse racism, supposedly by a black person. I mean, sure, maybe you were bullied by some black guy in middle school. Maybe he even called you a cracker. But when it comes to racism, we have to ask the larger question. Where is he today and where are you today? In other words, what opportunities have you had that he didn't have simply because of the color of his skin? What kind of support have you had that he didn't have? And not just with family either, but with the government, with corporate America, with education. You know, Dr. King said it the best. When black people get support, it's called welfare. When white people get support, it's called subsidies. What systems supported your growth in education but made his harder? And the biggest question is, when it comes down to general life opportunities, would you trade places with him and whatever opportunities were afforded to him? Now, obviously, these are rhetorical questions, but the point is, racism can only go one way when you have a society that's built and dominated by one group of people on pretty much every level. And if you insist on seeing this through a very myopic lens of the few times when somebody didn't treat you very nicely, probably because you were invalidating their experience like you're doing right now by insisting on this whole reverse racism narrative, and even to think that your understanding of what people of color experience on a day-to-day basis is more valid than theirs, and so valid that you have to add it to this very delicate conversation, that's a blatant example of your unintentional racism. I mean, who does that? It's like going down to the shelter for abused women and telling them, hey, I know how it feels because I got spanked as a child once for not eating all of my broccoli. Only someone who's been conditioned by society to think that their opinion was more valuable than somebody else's direct experience would be thoughtless enough to say something like, well, what about reverse racism? But if you're aware enough to be able to step back and look at this racism conversation through a historical context, then you'll see the legacy of racism in almost every facet of American life. And one place that I dare you to start is by going onto Netflix and watch a documentary called 13th. I dare you to watch that documentary if you haven't already, and then come back and try to talk to any black person about reverse racism. You'll have a completely new perspective on the hidden advantages that you've had your entire life without even realizing it. Please share, please comment, and I'll see you tomorrow.